Hello YouTube. Today we're going to be taking a look at Jesse Lee Peterson's take on the Pride Parade Los Angeles Man on the Street, number 93. Jesse Lee Peterson's channel, I suggest that you subscribe to it. He offers some of the best analysis of political current affairs online currently, I think. The production levels of this video are also really high. Sort of reminds me of like World Peace, you know, Sam Hyde's series on Adult Swim. It's got that sort of 90s aesthetic to it almost. And I suppose gay culture itself could be seen as sort of 90s in its own way. And in that sense quite a little bit dated in some sense. Okay, so the purpose of watching this is, or reviewing this, is not so much to review Jesse's work here, which is excellent, but more to just look at what the current sort of ideological mind frame is of the kind of people who would attend a gay pride event. Not all pride people, that is, but or not all gay people, I mean, but just particularly the views expressed in this video. Now, in order to do that, we have to skip ahead to some of the more relevant talking points. There's quite a number of them actually. Let's start with these two.
We are here to support that fully as allies.
Do you have lesbian and homosexual friends?
Yeah, a lot actually.
A lot?
A lot.
How did they become that way?
I mean, you just gotta let them be themselves. They don't become that way, they are that way.
Okay, so this is the point you see there, and Jesse is asking this question, are they born that way? I'm not sure what her answer is going to be, but she's just saying that they don't become that way, they just are that way. This idea comes from the concept of the genetic foundation of homosexuality, which we can see here in a Nature article from 2015. They talk of epigenetic tags linked to homosexuality in men. I'm not sure why it's only men. What do women have different epigenetic factors? Seems strange. Twin study reveals 5 DNA markers that are associated with sexual orientation. Is it only homosexual orientation? I'm not sure. Now, since this story was first published, several researchers have criticized the study methods. Some statisticians, including Andrew Gelman at Columbia University in New York, have said that the study incorrectly presented its results as statistically significant. So I'm assuming therefore that Gelman doesn't believe that there's an epigenetic link to homosexuality in men. If we go down here, it states here pretty categorically, we already know there is no gay gene, says William Rice, an evolutionary geneticist at the University of California, Santa Barbara. If there were, he says, it would have turned up in one of the massive studies that scanned the whole genome for variants shared between gay people. The largest such study, led by Sanders, looked at 409 pairs of gay brothers, including some non-identical twins. The researchers found that gay men shared similarities in 2 areas of the genome, but Sanders said that he and his colleagues are still trying to determine which particular genes or their components in these regions compared to sexual orientation, assuming they even do. So if we just look at some of the contested ideas here from HuffPost, there's an article by Nessa Carey entitled "The Epigenetics of Sexuality Wrong on So Many Levels. Another Day, Another Truly Execrable Epigenetic Report." Epigenetics is the study of chemical modifications of our genetic material which influence how genes are expressed. it provides the mechanistic link between our genes and our environment, and is a beautiful area of biology. So it is suggesting that the environment somehow impacts on your genes to create chemical modifications. But what particular environment elements are supposed to be impacting on genes with these five DNA markers to create homosexuality? I mean, what is it? The water? Is it oranges? Car exhaust? Smoke while... I mean... And doesn't it suggest that homosexuality is some kind of disease? And even so, if we look at the Wikipedia page on epigenetics, we see that in psychology and psychiatry, epigenetic traits can cause or be caused by early life stress, addiction, anxiety, depression, and fear conditioning. All quite negative traits, if you ask me. So they're lumping it in as some sort of condition. Then in terms of medical factors, we have cancer, diabetic wound healing. So again, all quite negative. So let's go back to these people, hear what they have to say.
Born that way or became afterward?
I don't know what they are. I mean, I'm not them, but I think they just are that way. You can't like just become something.
Came that way?
Nah, I just let them be them.
How do they become homosexual?
So how do they become homosexual is the question.
Or lesbian?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I don't think that's something that you become. I think that's something that's inside of you. And I think once you discover who you are, you can...
Now, doesn't it seem like the other lady doesn't... I mean, she's sort of hiding behind her sunglasses here, but it seems like she does sort of questioning her own beliefs a bit here. Look at her facial expressions.
You can just appreciate your being.
And so tell me about your sign. It says, just be black. Black is...
Black is whatever you want it to be, but I think black is brilliant. And today we joined...
And this guy is brilliant. This guy who comes along here.
The walk for the AIDS Foundation.
Oh, I see. Oh, that happened up here at this event today?
Yes, it did.
Oh, really? Was Maxine Waters here?
Yes, she was.
Really?
Yes,
Maxine Waters.
And so,
she's quite big at the moment, I think.
What do you think?
Black is amazing.
Yes, black
is amazing.
Yeah.
At the end, what it all means to you?
I mean, in the end, it all means to me that everybody is amazing and beautiful, and I love everyone.
All right, are you
Is that
lesbian?
okay? No, I'm not a lesbian. I'm straight. I'm married to a man, but I have a gay brother and a million gay friends, and I love everything about Pride.
Wrong
Where
way.
did you get from today?
Yes, Jed, get in this.
What do you think about the Great White Hope?
Here. No,
Some
we don't
lagging
like
with the
President
video.
Trump. Why?
Oh, I don't like President Trump.
What are you expressing?
Like I said, I'm just expressing myself, and this is a beautiful country that we can come out here and do this. I think.
Oh, why is he hiding his face?
And are you homosexual?
Yes.
How did that happen?
I guess I just woke. I mean, I don't know. I guess I was born homosexual. I guess I was born gay. Like, I don't know. I just kind of.
Yeah, so he's not sure either. Guess he was. Of course, this is all related to sort of propaganda about how people are discriminated against based on, things that they can't change. So, for example, Jesse Lee Peterson here is black. He can't choose his race. If you're just to be sexist, people can't choose their sex. Homosexuals can't choose their sexual orientation if it's decided at birth. Then it's an equally discriminatory act, and therefore they would fall under the banner of a repressed or suppressed minority that has certain inalienable rights, as compared to if two people like two different football teams, like let's say you like Manchester United or Liverpool, you're not genetically predisposed to liking Manchester over Liverpool. Perhaps some people are because they're from Manchester. But or like the difference between people who like water and beer or something, or Coke and Fanta. These are preferences. It doesn't create a whole new subgroup of people, and that if we say, oh, you're an idiot for liking Fanta, it doesn't mean that they're oppressed. It's just an opinion. Here's a couple of good examples, I guess.
I was just always this way,
There's another one.
I've always...
This lady is self-described bisexual, though.
I find girls and guys attractive.
So
and how did you become a lesbian?
Well, I'm bisexual. Yeah, I was just always this way, I've always liked guys and girls, and
sometimes you feel like having sex with a guy, and sometimes
you feel
like having sex with a woman.
I think you get the idea. There's this idea that it's their identity and that they can't choose it, and that they can't change either, and that to suggest that they should change is somehow oppressive and ignorant and insensitive. So, it's not just a preference on their behalf that they could change, like they could start eating burgers instead of chips, or like mashed potato instead of peas, and learn to like it. So again, you're talking about epigenetics, that certain people might have the genetic markers that predisposes them to liking peas, for example, but they might also have a genetic marker that predisposes them to liking carrots as well, and they just have to eat more carrots, and then that will become expressed in their genetics. It's a simplified idea, but you get the idea. You see how it relates to the question at hand. So again, it's environmental pressure. The more carrots you eat, the more you build a tolerance to the taste of them, and you might even start to like it. Similarly, like with any action in society, such as like being engaged in different sorts of relationships with men or women, the more you engage in it, the stronger you'll reinforce that behavior, and you'll kind of rewire your brain into that mode. And then once you're in that mode, you'll feel like you were never in any other mode, potentially. But this idea that people are born one way, and that sexual orientation is fixed in a particular direction and can't change, is if you are self-described as lesbian or gay, that's it, then that's your life path chosen, and that this is determined from birth, is, as Jesse Lee Peterson would say, a story kind of made up by the children of the lie, because that's what it is a lie. We can see here a number of examples of people in the public eye who did switch their orientation, as the title here says, 15 celebs who were gay but are now straight. So let's have a look at some of these. Julie Cypher. It's an interesting case. An American filmmaker who worked on films like Stand and Deliver and Demon Wind. I haven't heard of either of those. Julie Wright got her opportunity to sit in the director's chair in the early to mid 90s. There's the 90s again. Responsible for 2 film projects. Okay, you most likely haven't heard of either of them. Yes, you're right, I haven't. As a result, you're probably wondering what qualifies her as a celeb. Good question. Famed for her long-term relationship with Melissa Etheridge left. The pair were together, or was together, not sure. Together for 10 years. After giving birth to 2 children, she and her partner Melissa shared, and working as a gay rights advocate, Julie shockingly revealed in a therapy session that she was not gay, and they split. Okay, so going on to marry a man named Matthew Hale in 2004. She has mostly disappeared from the spotlight since, presumably to become a housewife and mother or something along those lines. Drew Barrymore. Now, I did not know about this. One of the most famous actresses of her generation, perhaps. Drew Barrymore has appeared in a bevy of different films, I don't think she really needs much of an introduction. Coming out as a bisexual during a 2003 interview with Contact magazine, she was quoted as saying, "I love a woman's body. I think a woman and a woman together are beautiful." I would agree. Just as a man and a woman together are beautiful. Being with a woman is like exploring your own body, but through someone else's. Still, despite still identifying as a bisexual woman, to this stage she has largely been involved in long-term relationships with men like Jamie Walters, right, Tom Green as well, yeah, I forgot about that, Fergie of Black Eyed Peas. It's interesting that a lot of them self-identified as bisexual, which is, don't know, I would say that a lot of people in the LGBT community have an issue with bisexuals, although they're not. You know, there's no one talking about gay or marriage rights for bisexuals. How would that even work? Do they choose to can they marry a man and a woman? Wouldn't that allow them to be polygamous? In which case we could all have several husbands and wives each if we so wished. How come they're not fighting for the rights of the B in LGBT? Don't they matter? Probably not. What would be the genetic tags and environmental pressures to cause that, I wonder. Anyway, so Margaret Cho, again, one of the most multifaceted people to find herself on this list. Comedian, actress, fashion designer, author, singer and songwriter. It seems as though she's tried her hand at virtually every artistic endeavour. Still it is her stand-up background and television show that are her biggest claims to fame. Star of All American Girl. Okay, so someone who has spoken publicly about her past lesbian relationship. She's currently married to artist Al Redenour, and thus putting her in a straight relationship, but she's been public about her open nature of their union, saying, "I'm married to a man, but I'm bisexual, so I like that." So she basically changed from being a lesbian to being a bisexual, at least on paper, but in reality she is clearly heterosexual. In terms of her relationship affiliations, Megan Fox, okay, not sure if we need to go into that. Amber Heard, again, I mean, a lot of these people I imagine they're quite fickle in their life's decisions anyway, certainly Amber Heard when it comes to her choice in partners, so I don't know if we need to investigate that too deeply. Yeah, Gillian Anderson was one that I did not know about at all, and being a fan of X-Files for many years, I was quite surprised, but each their own, of course. An actress who's best known for her starring role in The X-Files, where she played a special Dana Scully. Series was a huge hit. Gillian is someone who is married to 2 men and was involved with a 3rd man for an extended period of time after her 2 divorces. Still, in 2012, she told Out magazine that she was in a relationship with a girl for a long time when I was in high school, which some may have written off as simply youthful experimentation, except they'd be wrong, because she told the Telegraph that she would be open to dating another woman, saying, "To me, a relationship is about loving another human being. Your gender is irrelevant." Still, she belongs on the list as she is the only been in straight relationships for years, but clearly illustrates the non-linear relationship some have with their sexuality. That is some sentence there. Marlon Brando, Lindsay Lohan, Anna whatever. Anna Heck is an actress who has been part of major projects like I Know What You Did Last Summer and Volcano. Despite her long resume, however, we'd be lying if we tried to pretend that she didn't owe the majority of her fame to her 3-year relationship with current talk show host Ellen DeGeneres, probably the highest profile celebrity lesbians of all time. They were at the center of the media's attention right up until they broke up in 2000, essentially saying that she changed her mind about being gay while on Late Show with Craig Ferguson. In 2008, she married 2 different men after breaking up with her former girlfriend. So she just changed her mind about being gay. There was no environmental pressure or anything. It was just, oh, you know, I'm not gay anymore. It's that easy. So I get the feeling that this is kind of a PC outfit. They don't want to ruffle any feathers, certainly. You know, it's all been kind of, oh yeah, I was this way and I still could be if I wanted to be, sort of thing. Whereas I'm sure if we were to dig around, we'd find more candid articles. I've certainly, and I'm speaking from experience here because I've done this research before and I know that they exist, although I'm not, you know, it was a number of years ago, so I'm not entirely sure what website it was or what the article was. To try another one here, just on spec, as they say. Well, this one obviously won't work. He went from straight to gay and back again. Oh no, that might actually, probably not though. Yeah, so I mean that's an even, it's, you know, changing twice. Is there an epigenetic marker for this kind of alteration? So let's go back to this Huffington Post article because I thought it was interesting. It reveals something about the mental state of the people interested in discussing this from a particular position. And as we'll see, the position is so nebulous and difficult to pin down because they don't really have a position. Let's just go into it. The latest awful study hasn't been published yet. Said it was presented at the end. Right, well it has been published now, I think. They analysed the epigenetic modifications and announced they'd found 5 that together would predict the sexuality of the donor accurate 67% of the time. So that's what this Andrew Gelman was talking about, how the study had incorrectly presented its results as statistically significant. Does 68% of the time sound good to you? Try thinking of it another way. Would you bet anything beyond $1 on something that will be wrong a third of the time? In yes-no situations, you could flip a coin and be right 50% of the time on average. 67% doesn't sound so impressive now, does it? So why am I wasting my time on an unpublished piece of badly performed science that appeared in Nature magazine? But let's just keep going anyway. She might be right. By writes, this should have sunk without a trace, not because it's controversial, is it? But because it isn't much good, according to her, right? But Nature, the world's leading scientific journal, wrote a piece on it, and then the non-scientific press picked up on it and gave it ridiculous amounts of coverage. I can't quite bring myself to castigate the popular press. Why not? But is it because you belong to it? But Nature, this okay, I understand. This really should be placed in your what were we thinking filing cabinet of shame. Jesus, the way people write, these people write. Ludicrous amount of coverage of a basically the ludicrous amount of coverage of a basically uninterpretable experiment suggests a surprising amount of interest in the basis of sexuality. And I am even more irritated by this than I am by poor use of statistical analysis. She just like wakes up in the morning like angry about this subject. I think of myself as a naturally curious person. That's why I'm a scientist. So this woman is apparently a scientist. I wonder about loads of stuff all the time. How cell phones signals move. Why dead dragonflies fade but butterflies don't. Why most people are more interested in life on Mars than in their own neighborhood. But with the exception of wondering what the Kardashian... Oh god. I think it's... I know a few gay people who waste their time... I know few gay people who waste any time on this. Well, that's not necessarily true. We'll get to that point later. In contrast, it is all, as we've seen in Jesse Lee Peterson's video, they've all seemed to swallow this pill pretty, significantly. It's become part of their entire frame of reference. Oh, but here's the thing I was going to say. you know, she claims to be a scientist, but then when it comes to this piece of interesting scientific research, rather than debunking it on a scientific basis, basically on a scientific basis, she basically just says, well, what? She's basically just saying, let's not let's not talk about it. You know, it's like, because it'd be naive and potentially dangerous. Well, if it's the truth, it'd be the truth, wouldn't it? You just talk about it anyway. You know, instead of this whataboutism. So I think the final thing to say about this is something along the lines of, initially they wanted to cement the idea of homosexuality as being genetic or epigenetic, so that they could fall into a class of a minority that you know, that couldn't change their status, and therefore to discriminate against them on religious grounds or anything like that would be wrong, because they weren't able to choose the way they were. But then they attack the same studies that attempt to prove them right on that issue, and then just try and ignore it and say, well, you know, no one cares if white people or straight people are genetically predetermined to be straight. Well, I mean, obviously people are sort of genetically predetermined to be straight because that's what biology dictates. That's a kind of a, you know, don't really need to think about that too much. So if these people are all saying that they were just born this way, but then at the same time attempting to distance themselves from any sort of study which suggests that in fact such that genetics play a part, or that it even matters, then what point are they really making? Aren't they just, they're either lying about it or they're not really being very serious about the point they're making. But at the same time you can kind of see that they don't really believe that. In the back of their minds they kind of know that they just made this decision to be like either cool or to fit in, or not to be seen as, you know, hating gay people. Not all of them are, obviously, but on the whole, or a large percentage, I would say, of people who have experimented in the past, like particularly celebrities here, are doing it for some sort of fame or notoriety or acceptance within the dominant liberal political narrative, let's say. So they're obviously doing it because it benefits them as a group collectively, but then at the same time they're calling it into question. So there's no logic behind any of this, because as you kind of look into it and pick it apart, you see that there's nothing really there, and that they don't have any arguments against these points because there was never really a point to begin with. And all of this research is a waste of time, and all of these articles that they're writing are equally saying nothing, essentially. So that's it. It's not really, none of this is actually important, like I was saying. So, but Lee Peterson's work here is pretty good. It's very interesting and shines an interesting light on society and the fallen state of society. Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching. Leave a like and subscribe.